Welcome to the Not in the Job Description podcast. I'm Scott McLaughlin.
And I'm Chris Kiernan.
Look at all the people around you. They may seem very different, but they all have something very much in common. Work. Most people have had a history of roles that's taken them to their current job.
Everybody has a story about their job and how they got there. We'll explore funny, gross, embarrassing, scary, and sometimes almost unbelievable stories that people have experienced at their job. So enjoy the conversations as people share things about their jobs that were not in the job description.
On today's episode, we talk to Steve, who is a corrections officer. Welcome, Steve.
How's it going?
Hey, Steve.
So I guess when we talk, I have so many questions, by the way, because, it's almost become a cultural thing now, prison kind of things. Started with Oz, and there's and Orange is the New Black and all these things where there's a lot of prison in our culture now. So I'm just very interested. I have a million questions, but if we could, tell us a little bit about just how you even got started in this business.
So a little over a decade ago, I actually did a little amateur MMA fighting, and I got hurt. Had like 3 fights, got hurt. I couldn't fight no more. I had a bad anger problem. And
I guess that's a pretty good occupation if you have anger issues. I mean,
it was my way of keeping my anger under control.
Okay.
And a buddy of mine worked at a strip club as a bouncer, and he's like, "Hey, we need some more people here. You're just knocking heads all night. It'd be great for your anger."
There you go.
So I did that for a little while, and then I got into security, ended up getting armed doing security. Did that for 10 years.
Okay.
And then a couple years ago, I saw a posting for corrections officer hiring immediately, and went in for the interview. I was a major at the company I was at before this, and I got a $5 raise going to be a corrections officer.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I'm up like $8 in 2 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I always try and do a little bit of research anytime somebody's going to come in and chat with us. And I saw that according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2021, there's about 419,000 corrections officers out there, but there's expected to be a 10% decline in this job through 2031. And somehow or other, I don't feel like that decline is because we're going to have less prisoners.
It's not.
It's because it's a tough job, right?
It is. And not anybody can do it. It is grueling, mentally exhausting. It ain't very physically exhausting most of the time.
Right.
Most of the time, I sit on my ass and don't do a damn thing.
Yeah. Listen, I know a lot of cops, and they're like, 99% of my job is completely boring. It's the 1% that's just horrifying, that, your blood pressure's through the roof. You may be in a life-threatening situation. I'm not so sure it's worth it to have the 99%, but it's a job, right?
So the prison that I work at is actually level 1, level 2.
Explain what that is.
All right, so you got level 1, which is like your lowest level. They're the ones that it used to be you had to start out at the top tier and work your way down. Now they just kind of throw people into the bottom tier, and they should be at the top tier.
Got it.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and E, which is kind of, they should have just made it 5, but
Yeah, right.
the 4s and 5s are at Lucasville, which I'm sure you guys have all heard about the Lucasville riots.
Yeah.
And then the OSP, which is the state penitentiary.
Mm-hmm.
I deal with the lowest security risk.
Okay. Well, at least there's some solace in that, right? But let's be honest here.
They're still criminals. They're still felons.
And they're only in this one because they haven't done anything yet.
Right, or they weren't caught for the major crime.
Oh, no. Like, we got a guy at our prison. Like, he's one of them that started out at the high tier and worked his way down.
Okay.
But he was convicted of 2 murders. They pulled him over on the highway and found 2 bodies in his trunk.
Oh, wow.
That happens sometimes.
He was taking him to Illinois.
Yeah.
They caught him in Dayton.
Wow. Yeah.
He was a hitman for the mob.
Really?
Yeah, for the Dayton mob.
Well, I hope he kept his mouth shut at least.
As far as I know, yeah.
Okay. I'm a firm believer. Don't get involved in things unless you're willing to pay the price for them. So just pay the price now.
Hey, I grew up in the hood. Snitches get stitches.
That's right. You're in a good spot. I think you'll have something to share with some of the people you have to work with there, because that's part of prison culture, right? You just don't do that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And this will be for another show, of course, but did you say the Dayton mob? I don't know if that inspires fear or not, but
I've heard of Youngstown. But yeah, I wasn't aware, but I'm sure there's a
So from what
German village mob too.
from what I've been told, this was back in the 70s. They were called the Dayton Boys or something like that. I don't know. It's not the mob that's the fear.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the former Army Special Forces or Marine Special Forces, something like that. Contract killer.
Yeah.
That was coming
Right.
after you.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. for
That was
sure.
the fear.
right.
Of
right.
course. Yeah.
And like they say that there's possibly up to 500 bodies on him, and yeah.
That's crazy. But there are people like that out there. That's how they make their living. They are
Yeah.
maybe they don't really. I don't want to call him a sociopath because I don't know.
Oh, see, actually, with him, I've had long conversations with him.
Mm-hmm.
He came out of Vietnam.
So
Didn't-
killing's nothing new to him.
Right. Didn't know anything other than killing.
Well, I guess when you're good at something, right?
Yeah, yeah. He was Special Forces. That's all he knew was how to kill. And, I mean, you come out of 10, 15, 20 years. This guy was getting visits from generals while he was in
Right.
prison.
Oh wow.
That's crazy.
Like, come on.
So now that you're in this level 1 prison, is this only males or is there also females that
Only
are in
males.
the prison? All right. Do you have female guards?
Yes.
And there's so many stories about female guards because some of these prisoners, now granted, maybe it doesn't happen as much in a level 1, but you get a little higher and in the prison, I guess, ranking there, and you're stuck for a long time. You have female guards. A lot of these prisoners are trying to work them, right?
Yeah. Oh,
and,
yeah.
and there's lots of scenarios where people fall for this stuff. They find a way to, wiggle their way into their lives somehow, and they're trying to help them escape and shit like that. I mean, have you guys had any situation where maybe you've seen somebody moved because there was fear that there was kind of a relationship trying to be built?
Oh, no. So they don't get moved. They get fired.
Oh,
They get walked out the prison. It happens all the time.
Oh, wow.
Way
That's a
more
good way to
way
deal
more
with
than
it.
you would think.
Yeah.
We just had one walked out a couple weeks ago, and they don't try to use them to escape. They're using them to get drugs
Yeah.
and
Make the stay better.
yeah, money on their books and all kinds of stuff. Just all the way down to sexual favors. So
Sure, yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. I mean, it's a dangerous work environment. There's a risk to your mental health.
I have a mental health.
See, there's the problem. You didn't even know it. You've been there too long. But that's the kind of thing where it's dangerous. A lot of I'm sure you get great benefits. I'm sure you told us about the pay increases you've had over just the past couple years. But there's a huge downside to this too, and that is it's got to be a little dangerous. I'm sure that you never really know how someone's going to act. I mean, what kind of instructions do they give you regarding getting close to or talking with or anything like that with the prisoners?
Don't share any personal information. We all go by last names, and don't give them your first name. Granted, I'm going to tell you I'm guilty of this. I have gotten a little too personal with inmates
Okay.
as far as information wise. We got one at my prison. Awesome guy. May or may not have killed his parents 40 years ago, but
Again, it happens.
it was 40 years ago.
Right.
The guy's done time. Like, he's
Yeah.
coming up for parole.
Probably not the most dangerous person in the world, given
Right.
that he's, probably 60 years old.
Oh, yeah. Closer to 70.
There you go.
He was actually, so it's what we call a porter.
Okay.
And that's pretty much any general worker in the prison is called a porter.
Okay.
Their main job is cleaning, but it can vary up to a bunch of things. But he was my porter for 6 months, 7 months.
Yeah.
And if this guy got parole and I ran into him on the street, I go get a beer with him.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Right.
I ain't even going to sugarcoat it. I go get a beer with him.
Well, and here's the thing. People are people.
Yeah.
And people make dumbass mistakes, especially when they're young, right?
Mhm.
Let's face it. I'm guessing Chris and I, we're okay now because we never got caught doing the stupid shit. Not that we were killing people, or not that I would admit on a podcast, but it's people make stupid decisions. That doesn't always make people bad. My bigger concern for people who are maybe made a bad decision and have to do time. Now we put them in this environment in prison where you can't act like you do on the outside in prison because that could be very dangerous,
All right, so you want to talk about the prison environment.
Please.
So, prison's not prison anymore. I'm going to start off by saying that. Prison's not prison anymore.
What do you mean?
They have tablets. They have TVs. They have pool tables, game systems.
I may attempt to rob a bank tomorrow.
Right? We make the joke, and it's really not a joke, but we make the joke all the time that the prisoners get treated better than we do.
Yeah. I have all that stuff too, but I have to have a job to make sure I can pay for it all. These guys are just chilling.
Oh, yeah, no, they make like the highest paid person in the prison makes like $100 a month.
Wow. But they don't have to pay for their meals and stuff, right?
Right. They get everything handed to them. The only thing they got to pay for is like commissary, which is just like their extra shit, snacks, hygiene, stuff like that.
That is crazy. Yeah, I mean, think about it. If you were somebody who is really creative and you're like, man, I can't write this script because I'm so busy. Best thing that ever happened to you might be a little stint in prison, man. You could write, a crazy movie and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
You get 3 hot meals a day. I don't know if they're great, but
They're
you
not.
get fed.
They suck.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I've had them.
Yeah, I mean,
Like when you're working a mandate 16 hours and
you just eat.
You need something to eat.
Yep.
You run over to the chow hall and grab something see what they're eating. If it looks just halfway decent,
Yeah, yeah.
like here, come on.
Yeah, go ahead. Hook me up. That is funny.
So you're talking about maybe how prison nowadays isn't as hard as it used to be. I love watching that show Locked Up Abroad. I think that people that think they have it rough in prison in America, if they spent just a week in some of these foreign prisons, they would be like, oh shit, I got to get out of here, because that's no joke when you're watching those foreign prisons.
We got a bunch of Africans from Africa working in our prison.
Okay.
And they tell us all the time, this ain't a prison.
Oh, right.
Because they worked at prisons in Africa.
Right.
Yeah.
And like guys were fighting to the death just to stay alive. And like, no.
Yeah, you let the word out in Africa that our prisons give you 3 meals a day, plus tablets, plus TV. My God.
With cable.
Yeah, with cable. You're going to have people.
They got internet on the tablets.
Absolutely.
Like the tablets are blocked where they can only do certain things. They can't get on social media or anything like that. But they jailbreak them.
Of course.
Yeah. And that's one of the issues we deal with. They have a phone on the tablet, video phone, regular phone. They can now talk to their families.
So wait a minute. You're telling me that people in prison are living a better life than I am?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
That stings a little bit, but I can live with it.
I'm telling you, I work 60 hours a week for $23 an hour.
Yeah.
And they're living a better life than I am.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Now, if you ask them, I'm sure they'd prefer their freedom. But if you're going to do time,
some of them,
American free, some of them are probably like, no, I'm comfy here.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Oh yeah.
But you could do a lot worse than an American prison. That's for sure.
Definitely.
You mentioned all the stuff they have. Certainly, there are things they're not allowed to have, and just all types of contraband. Do you have any good stories about contraband? Because I've read a lot of creative ways people get drugs and weapons and things like that. And do you run into that issue a lot?
Not really on the weapons because we are level 1.
Okay.
But the drugs, yes. Our prison's full of drugs.
Yeah.
The most iconic way and normal way for them to get drugs in is through their ass.
Oh, yeah. Chris knows.
Damn, do you, Chris?
Hey, not on the podcast. All right.
I'm sorry. We'll cut that out. Post it.
But you'll have visitors come in to see them, and like they'll have Suboxone in their mouth.
Yeah.
And when say you're in prison, your wife comes to see you, she's allowed to give you a hug and a kiss. They'll pass the Suboxone in the kiss.
Yeah.
Right.
They got to get like completely stripped out naked. The amount of times an inmate gets stripped out naked. Oh, sorry, they don't want us calling them inmates no more.
Oh,
it's incarcerated persons.
There's too many syllables there.
Oh, I know.
We'll just call them dudes.
Right.
But the amount of times they get stripped completely naked, squat and cough, like the whole 9 yards in a prison on a daily basis is crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've seen more nuts and butts than I want to in my life.
I'm sure.
I wanted to see mine, and that was it.
At a certain point, you're like, just keep the drugs. I'm not doing this again.
We have had guys swallow drugs.
Yeah.
To keep us from finding them. They go in what's called dry cell. They don't get a toilet. They don't get anything to eat. Well, they do, but like it's like sparingly.
Yeah.
So
eventually you're going to have some evidence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they get all the drinks they want. All the water they can drink.
Right.
It's not fun for the officer sitting on it.
Sure.
Because it stinks.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
It stinks. It's almost as bad as a constant watch, which is the guys that are, maybe suicidal.
Yeah.
Maybe someone thinks they might be suicidal. Hell, we had a guy put on constant watch because his ex-wife called the prison and goes, I think my ex-husband's trying to kill himself.
Oh, wow.
The guy was standing at my desk talking to me when she called, and the captain's office calls up to me
She's
like,
so
hey.
evil.
Oh, yeah. She did it to him on purpose.
That's
And
fantastic.
it happens all the time.
That's
But-
fantastic.
But we have to take these seriously.
Of course.
Right,
If
right.
you don't, that's the one time it'll happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we just recently had a suicide.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it happens a lot. I can't believe it happens as much in level 1, but
It doesn't happen that much in level 1.
yeah.
I think our last one was like, I don't know, 10 years prior.
Wow.
Way before I started. But I think it was last year. There were 14 or 15 suicides for the year throughout the state.
Okay. Well, here's the way I think of it. I think it makes sense that you're going to have it either in level 1 or that level 5 equivalent, right?
Yeah.
If you're in level 5, you're just waiting out the clock on a lot of these things, right?
Yeah.
Father Time's going to come and take you off, and that's it. But if you're level 1, you might be thinking like, oh my God, I just screwed my entire life. What have I done? My girlfriend's not going to talk to me anymore. My wife's going to divorce me. My parents are going to... That's kind of like, I'm never going to get another job. Those are the people that have those life-changing experiences for the first time and quite possibly the last time ever, but they don't realize and put it into perspective like, yeah, this isn't good, but it's not worth ending it all over. I imagine it happens in those two and not so much as in the middle.
Actually, you'd be wrong.
Really?
Yeah. It happens more often in like level 3s, level 4s, and level 5s.
All right. Explain the difference between level 3 and a level 5.
Not really that much of a difference.
Okay. Just maybe more.
Level 5 is more of, if I'm not mistaken, because I've never worked at one.
Okay.
It's more of like 23 and 1.
Okay.
You're locked
Yeah,
up
yeah.
23 hours out of the day.
I guess I was trying to equate it to like sentence, but you could have a level 5 and level 3 with the same sentence, just different.
Oh, yeah. You can have
Yeah.
a level 1 with the same sentence.
Oh, okay.
They base it off a bunch of other stuff other than your sentence.
So, Chris, make sure you're on good behavior is what I'm telling you.
All right. Oh, I'm taking notes. Trust me.
Okay. All right. That is interesting. And I'm sure, again, do you get as many things like fights and stuff in level 1?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Here I am. I think I got level 1 figured out, and then you throw me the curveball.
It was like my first week on shift. I was just off training, and these two guys decide they're going to start beating the hell out of each other in the middle of the day room. Me coming from a security background, my first instinct was to run in and break them up.
Yeah, I could see how you want to do that.
They taught us in training, call for backup first, wait for them to get there, and then break them up.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen. I got an elbow to the eye.
I was going to say, you catch a couple.
Yeah. But I was fine overall. Most of the guys in my prison, they're just a bitch.
Yeah.
They're all mouth. They might throw a couple punches, but they're not going to do anything major.
And let's face it, anybody who's been in a real fight, assuming that you're not like a trained MMA person, you've got about 30 to 45 seconds of fury. And then that adrenaline dump just goes and you're exhausted.
Oh,
You're-
yeah.
You're not going to have somebody fight for 20 minutes.
Right. It's not like on TV, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I was looking at some stories on Ranker, and somebody said, when talking about the fights, they were an officer at a medium security prison. They said, I witnessed a fight between an MS-13 member and a Blood. MS-13 as brutal as they come. The MS-13 member knocked out the Blood and then attempted to pull his eyes from their socket. He said, I was on the other side of the barbed wire fence and couldn't intervene. I had to watch until someone else arrived, which was quick enough to save the Blood's life. I don't remember seeing that Blood come back after that trip to the hospital. That's the closest I've ever been to seeing someone get murdered. If the tower officer had a clean shot, I'm sure there would have been one less MS-13 member. But it is crazy. People get you kind of do have to be a certain way in prison, and if you're not a fighter, someone will sniff that out, and you either better be a fighter or you're just going to be a victim.
Better be a fighter or a lover.
Yeah, right.
We have a lot of that too.
Do you really?
Oh yeah.
See, I'm so thrown with this level 1 stuff.
The only difference is really from the higher level to the lower level.
Yeah.
Is the amount that they get to move around.
Okay.
Like that's really the only difference.
And so they're probably not like they don't have a history of causing trouble, or else they wouldn't even be in level
Right.
1. Okay.
Doesn't
Doesn't mean that they won't
the more trouble they
work
cause,
to level 2.
Right. The more trouble they cause in a level 1, they get a security review, and then if they get boosted up to a level 2, which we're still level 2 anyway, but if they get boosted to a level 2, they'll go to a different level 2 facility.
Yeah.
And then if they still keep causing trouble, they'll get boosted to a level 3 and get put to a level 3 facility, so on and so forth.
Okay. Okay. Now, everything, and this was a tough part, right? Because this podcast, we're not all that serious. Let's face it, we're not serious at all. We're just a couple of dorks that love work. and we like hearing other people's work stories. But almost every story had to do with how dangerous the job is. How I think they said the average tenure is like 2 years for this. And I read one guy who had a book out because he was a corrections officer for 50 years. That deserves more than a Rolex, right? I mean, that's a long time in that business. But the question I had for you, based on all the bad news, you guys have to have some fun. You've got to have some funny stories that happen out of prison, right?
Oh God, yeah. I think the craziest one I've seen personally was guys were it was like about a year-long phase. Guys were like cutting dominoes up, okay?
Yeah.
Like inmates were cutting dominoes up and they were sticking them down the head of their dick.
Why?
So they would cut them into like heart shapes
Yeah.
and then they would cut their dick a little bit to shove it down the tip of it so that the heart was at the tip of the dick.
Okay.
Okay. And
It's like a Valentine's Day thing. Like, I don't understand. What's the?
They-
I don't see the pleasure or the benefit to this.
they were doing it so that they had to go out on a medical trip to OSU. Because OSU deals with the all the inmates
Okay.
for the state.
All right.
Yep.
So it was just a surprise for the medical group when they got there.
Oh yeah. But I think my favorite thing about working in the prison, I recently went from being a CO to OPI, which is Ohio Penal Industries. They make everything, like the inmates make everything.
Oh, okay.
The one I worked at, they did like clothing and shit like that.
Yeah.
But I was there for 2 months and then went back to being a CO.
Yeah.
But I loved it there. I
What was the difference? What'd you like?
a different environment. Like it's still
Yeah.
inside the prison. Don't
Okay.
get me wrong, it's still inside the prison.
More of a work atmosphere, though.
Oh yeah, you are. So you ever worked in a warehouse?
Ish. Yeah.
So the staff
Yeah.
are like your supervisors.
Yeah.
And the inmates are the employees
Yeah.
working a production line,
Okay.
and that's the way they're treated. So the one thing they don't have access to in the prison is computers on a daily basis. Like there might be some special treatment here and there.
Yeah.
For like, legal shit and stuff like that. But at OPI, we had like 5 or 6 guys. Their job was on the computer.
Okay.
That's all they did. It blew my mind going from a CO to out there. And I see inmates on the computer. I'm like, what the hell? This ain't right.
After you smack the third one for doing it, you realize that was their job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prison's a different beast than it used to be.
Yeah.
I would even go as far, and some of the older guys may disagree with this, I would go as far as to say it's harder now
Really?
than it was 30 years ago.
Because they have just enough freedom that right? It's probably harder to reel them in sometimes, right?
Because their hands are untied. Mine are completely tied.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
They're behind my back. I'm sitting on them like, nah.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like the police, and there's a ton of things. And don't get me wrong, I don't think anybody should be mistreated, but they're the ones in jail.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like with police. And I actually saw a video a while back, said it was a cop that said, a New York cop that said every cop should start out as a corrections officer.
Yeah.
Because if you can work in a block
Oh, being a cop's a step up,
with,
right?
with 200, 300 inmates and just yourself,
Yeah.
and that's what it's like. So we don't have cells at my prison. It's like open dormitory,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
barrack style type
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
You got 150 to 200 inmates
Yeah.
and one officer working that block.
And that officer, if you're out there loose, you probably don't have a weapon, do you?
Oh,
At least a deadly weapon.
There's no deadly weapons in the prison
That's what I thought.
until something major happens, and they got to call in, SRT and all that. There's
Yeah.
no weapons in the prison.
Yeah. I mean, probably a good idea.
Yeah.
At 230
Oh,
to
yeah.
1, you probably don't want
Right.
that.
Because that Glock's got like 15 rounds in it.
Yep. There's a
And,
couple more people left.
Yeah. You might be able to take out 15, maybe 16. You get one
Yeah.
that goes through
If
for
they
the next
line
guy.
up just the right
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
But you definitely ain't doubling up every shot, so you ain't getting 30, and you sure
Yeah.
as hell ain't getting 200.
Well, it does. It forces you to be able to use your cunning and your words to have enough of a relationship that they respect you, that you're in charge, but not enough to, to necessarily want to go after you. I mean, there's a balance there that I'm sure you have to
yeah.
reach.
I have looked at inmates and told them that they were dumbasses, bitches, fucktards, but I know where to, draw that line. at.
Absolutely.
And, as I'm dealing with, certain inmates, I'll test where that line is.
Sure.
Just so I know where it's at.
Right.
Oh, and they're testing
I was
you
gonna
every
say
day.
the
Oh,
same
yeah,
thing. You
every
make a
day.
mistake, they're testing you as well.
They tell us right from training, they tell us firm, fair, and consistent.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Be the same person you are. It don't matter if you're a fucking asshole. Be the same asshole
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
To everybody.
Right.
My old partner, he now works outside the fence doing perimeter, but he's an asshole. we had guys come back from other prisons that were at that prison prior that came walking in, and we worked in medical. So everybody who comes in's got to go through intake and medical. They come in there, they come up to me and they're like, "Man, where's he at?" And I'm like, "What? How long ago was you here?" Like, I don't know, 10 years ago. This guy's been there for like 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Like, where's he at? And they're like, I'm like, he ain't in here no more. Oh, thank God, he's an asshole. And,
that's bad when the prisoners are saying,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that guy."
That's
But-
their reason for
but
not
they'll
wanting to
tell
come
you.
back.
but they'll tell you, they know he's an asshole. He's an asshole every day to everyone.
Yeah.
They know what they're getting with him. They would rather, and every inmate I've encountered will tell you, they would rather have a guy who's an asshole every day than the guy who is nice 9 times out of 10.
Right, where you don't
and
know where
gets
you're
that-
staying.
And gets that one asshole day a week. You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny. You mentioned working in medical. I wanted to try and keep this as light as possible because it could get dark.
Oh,
And
it can get very dark.
somebody wrote on writeaprisoner.com just, there are some funny things that you overhear prisoners say or do. And this
Hang on,
person,
Matt. Hang on, Matt. You said writeofprisoner.com?
that's, believe it or not,
That's a thing?
it's a real thing.
Okay.
They said, on a routine day, my friend and nurse steps out in the waiting room and asks, "Anderson, why are you here?" Inmate Anderson had failed to write why he wanted to be seen in medical. Inmate Anderson pipes up with, "I killed my wife." The whole place went up in laughter, inmates and staff, and Anderson then said rather sheepishly, "Athlete's foot."
So we actually, the running joke is, make an inmate wait. You always make them wait. Even if you don't have to make them wait,
They better get used to it.
you make them wait. And the reason why? They got nothing but time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Why not?
A lot of the guys, there's a good portion of the guys at my prison that are doing life. They'll never get out. They are lifers. They will die in prison. There's no doubt about that. They know it. We know it.
You think in level 1, there's a level of acceptance like, all right, I might as well not stir up any shit because I'm just going to be here?
For the guys that have been down for, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, so on and so forth, and the ones that are never getting out, yes. For the guys who are down for 6 months, a year,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
They're the ones we have our biggest issues out of. I tell you what, and this is probably going to surprise you guys, it's not the rapists, the murderers, the child molesters, the massively violent crimes that are the ones that give us the biggest issue. It's the robbers, the burglars,
yeah.
the domestic violence, the drugs.
And the people that are probably going to do it again in the next year and a half to 3
yeah.
years because they're getting out.
Oh yeah. So we had a guy probably about a year ago. Like I said, the whole sexual thing.
Yeah.
Between inmates, gay for the stay kind of
Right.
deal. That actually happens quite a bit. Now, sometimes you'll get that, or sometimes you'll get, like this one guy we had about a year ago who was shoving summer sausages up his ass.
Wait a minute. You can get summer sausages in prison too?
Yep.
Shit, I'm going.
and yes, I said summer sausages.
Plural.
Multiples. Okay.
Okay.
He had to
All right.
work his way up probably
Um,
to multiples. But
Please tell me, did he have to go like to medical and go, "Hey guys, I got an embarrassing thing to ask"?
Oh no, he got caught in the middle of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He actually went to the hole for that one.
Yeah, that's too easy. I'm leaving it
Literally.
alone. Yeah.
I queued it up for you. If you
I
wanted to
know.
go for it, that's
You threw a softball. It was just too easy to knock it out of the park. We have a very interesting person in Ohio. I don't know if you know the name Alva Campbell.
Not off the top of my head.
This dude survived his own execution in Ohio.
Oh yeah,
Remember that?
yeah.
Yeah, he. Now it's funny. Ron O'Brien, who's a pretty well-known prosecutor here, he coined the phrase of this guy: "Poster child for the death penalty." You don't hear that anymore.
right.
But he survived his own execution, facing the death penalty for the murder of another man during a robbery gone wrong in 1998. What really happened is he said he was sick because he was already in prison for murder. Said he was sick, ends up getting taken to the hospital while he wrestled the gun away from the person taking him, ran away, hijacked, or I guess you'd say he stole this car with a kid in it, and he was trying to get away, and the kid tried to grab him or something, and he shot the kid in the car. Well, they finally caught the guy, so he goes back to prison. Because of his chronic heart and lung problems, officials found it next to impossible to locate a viable vein to give him a lethal injection. So with a new execution date scheduled for 2019, he began appealing and arguing that the injection is a cruel and unusual punishment. Not that killing all the people in his past was, but still. Because the risk that the drugs may not work. He claimed that attempting to execute him again was unconstitutional. However, because God stepped in, he died of natural causes just a few months after that botched execution.
Thank God.
Yeah. God was like, all right, we've had enough.
So there was another guy, and I don't know if it was here in Ohio or where it was, but he survived. This was years ago. He survived his execution from Old Sparky.
Oh, God.
Yeah. He survived the electric chair.
Okay. The one dude, they couldn't find veins, so they really didn't go through with it. If he actually got lit up and survived, I don't know, man. I think I can make an argument like, all right, let's let him stay.
So he got lit up and survived, and he appealed his sentence. Told him that he deserved to be released because he had an execution.
Right.
Whether it was successful or not.
Yeah.
He was executed. They went through all the processes. He was electrocuted.
Right.
And,
Sentence served in his mind.
Yeah, and
I might agree with him.
I actually believe, if I remember correctly, the judge upheld that his sentence was the death penalty, and he got hit with the electric chair, and every bit of juice Old Sparky had, and it didn't work.
So you saying they let him go, or it's just like you live in prison now?
I'm pretty sure I read that they let him out.
God, I hope he was an old man and
Oh, he
couldn't
was.
cause any problems. All right,
He was like, I don't know, 60s, 70s.
Yeah. Oh man, that's interesting. Well, again, Steve, thanks for taking the time to chat with us today. This is the time of the podcast where I'll ask Chris, what did we learn today?
Well, I did learn a new use for dominoes.
Ah, that's true. And it's going to be a very interesting Valentine's Day at Chris's house.
Oh, yeah.
I learned that my consistency and just being a dick all the time might actually be a benefit.
I would agree.
All right. Well, hey, again, thank you very much, Steve, for joining us. And this is Scott McLaughlin.
I'm Chris Kiernan
saying we'll see you at work.
Thank you for listening to the Not in the Job Description podcast. If you have a story you'd like to share, or if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know by sending us an email with a brief description of your story to stories@notinthejob.com.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more crazy stories, make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcasts and follow us on our social media, including Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Rumble, Instagram, and YouTube.